Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Maggie. Welcome to my home in Rhinebeck, New York. Come on in, I'll show you around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Maggie Pouncey, and I'm an author. We are in Rhinebeck, New York, in the Hudson Valley, and my house is a 1840s farmhouse that has been added on to over the years, but still has a lot of the old elements. I moved to New York City for college and had lived there my whole adult life. And I owned a children's bookshop in Brooklyn, and I have two sons who were going to school there, and kind of imagined that I would live in New York City my whole life. It sort of becomes a big part of your identity, being a New Yorker. But when the pandemic happened, we decided to close our bookshop. It sort of opened up this new realm of possibility for us. So in 2021, we sort of said, what if we moved to the country? Just sort of exploring that possibility. And we looked at a few real estate listings, and we saw this house, and we went to see it, and that was kind of it. We just fell in love. I came to see it on this extremely gloomy February day. It still had this kind of warmth and light about it, and sort of just knew it was it. So we didn't look at any other houses. Maybe the house sort of chose us. It had been on the market a while. So then we moved in the summer of 2021. Welcome to the entryway. This is the original part of the house. You can see from the old floorboards. This is where people used to enter the house. Now we enter through the side often, but it's lovely to have this door open and to sort of let the light in from the outside. This bookshelf over here was something we got my husband and I got at a flea market in New York City. And we lived in a very tiny apartment, and we needed a very narrow bookshelf, and we found it, and it's still with us here. Because I'm a writer and a former bookshop owner, there's books in pretty much every room of the house. I just see them as just part of life in the house, like having art. So we have some travel books, some puzzles, some games for the kids. This piece of art, this beautiful textile of Venice, was my mom's. One of the things I got from her. And I got many things from my mother, my grandmother on that side, and even my great-grandmother. So she's kind of the matriarch. And this is her, Carrie, from her husband, Arturo. So we sort of have the matriarch protecting the home here. I have sort of always thought of myself as a writer. I loved writing as a kid, and I studied writing in college and graduate school. And I started out writing fiction for adults, and I published a novel called Perfect Reader, which came out when my son Felix was a baby. When he was really small, I was really discovering the world of children's books kind of published more recently. And it's just such a beautiful age of children's books right now. And so I had loved the genre as a child, but loved it in a new way as an adult. And so that inspired me to open our bookshop, which was called Stories Bookshop and Storytelling Lab in Brooklyn. So while running the shop, I also started writing children's books. So I have a picture book called A Fort on the Moon that was inspired by watching my two sons, Felix and Dominic, at play. And I have a few more in the works coming out down the line. So we'll go this way into the living room. And here we are in the living room. One of the newest parts of our home is this Murano chandelier. My husband very painstakingly reassembled recently. I just can't get over the detail and artistry of it. We got it from this amazing place called Hudson Valley House Parts, which is in Newburgh, New York. And basically they are salvage shop. When homes are being like gut renovated, they go in and they save windows and doors and chandeliers. And a funny story about it is it came in like a million boxes and pieces, and it was a little daunting. And so I wrote to them and I was like, any guidance? And they said, oh, any clever person can figure out how to assemble it. So there's a lot of pink in this house. I was really feeling pink when we moved in. We didn't do that much work to the house when we moved in. We refinished the floors and we painted. And so you'll see there's kind of a few shades of pink around the house. And what I really love about this pink is that it sort of becomes almost a neutral. I feel like art looks really pretty against it, and you almost just don't notice it at a certain point, but it is definitely pink. This dresser, I bought this at a vintage shop in Brooklyn, and it had different knobs. It had these kind of big black knobs, and I think that is such a fun thing to do, is buy new knobs for things like little tiny changes you can make. I think make huge differences. We did it on some of the built-in millwork in the house. We just changed the knobs, and it just kind of makes it feel fresh and kind of prettied up. This chair was in my family home growing up, the Spentwood rocker. I've been thinking a lot about sort of, family heirlooms and kind of integrating them into your own style, right? Because I have a lot of these items, and it can feel a little weighty, I think, like the sort of the past, and it was your parents' aesthetic and maybe your grandparents. So I do really love preserving these things, but I also think it's important to give yourself license to part with things if they don't feel quite right. When I reupholstered this chair, I gave that guy a little new pillow. I really love using books as decor, but also books that are fun to read and interesting. And we sort of have a mix here of children's books, design books, books for grown-ups, film, art. I really love children's picture books, and I also really love design books, and they're both picture books really in a sense. So you'll see a lot of those there, and I hope that when people come and hang out in our living room, they'll sort of say like, oh, that's interesting. Let me just kind of page through that. And we have some games too. This is a game where you do little jumps and you try to only have one left. It's very difficult. And we have a puzzle with different kind of woodland creatures that it's also really fun to do. And so like my kids, when they have friends over, come and, sit in the living room and do these little puzzles. This painting over the fireplace is by an artist named Emily Mason. Parents, when I was a kid, befriended her and her husband, Wolf Kahn. And we have a painting on the other side of the room by Wolf Kahn. And then when my parents got divorced, my mother got Emily Mason's painting and my dad got Wolf Kahn's painting. And now I think it's kind of this beautiful metaphor that they're reunited in my living room. And I just think the colors are incredible. It kind of makes me feel like it's like an underwater portal, but kind of a fun thing to kind of imagine these paintings across the room greeting each other in reunion. I really love rearranging furniture. I think it's like one of the best ways to sort of redesign your home without spending any money. And there's always things that I'm moving around. This area has kind of changed a lot. The art has moved around on the walls. And I also think it's really good to kind of take that energy of trial and error into your home and sort of figure out like, where does this object want to be? This piano was actually in a house that friends of ours in Brooklyn bought. It was upstairs in the house, and they already had a piano. So they asked us, do you want a piano? And I think it's a good rule in life, if someone offers you a free piano, that you should say yes. So that's how we ended up with our piano. It's so nice when someone comes over who plays the piano and sits and plays for everyone. It's a real treat. This beautiful photograph is taken by my friend John Pack. He did this very cool photography project called the Olympic City. They went to former sites of the Olympics and photographed them and sort of saw how these spots that were kind of made at great expense for the Olympics were being used by these cities after the fact. So this is Barcelona. There's lots of different kind of areas to read. That's encouraged a lot. So lamps and cozy chairs and tables for your tea. And lots of artwork also by my children. My son Felix made this incredible creature. I'm not exactly sure. Lizardy, dinosaur, amazing scales. Anyway, this was by Felix, and actually this is a whole Felix area. He made this vase and this box. So I really like that. Maybe it's high-low element, or maybe it's just all of it is art, right? That things that you make as a kid are just as creative and wonderful. I really love this room that we're sitting in, the living room. I was really daunted by it because it's a large space. It's bigger than the sort of main living space of our Brooklyn home. So when we first moved in, it was like very minimalist, not intentionally, but just we had to sort of find more furniture over time to fill it with. It was really kind of a fun challenge to think about how to make it feel like one cohesive space, but also kind of some cozier nooks, which I always really like. And I feel like it has this feeling that I'm always looking for in a house, which is kind of different from like how it looks or what you do in the space, but sort of like how it makes you feel when you enter it. And I feel like I've really tried to create this kind of inviting warmth about the space, and over time we're getting there. I was thinking also about how I love to have books in every room. You know, we all are big readers, but books also can be kind of this heavy energy. So I'm always kind of fiddling and moving them around. And I like that over here right now, I have a real mix of children's books, adult books. My dad passed away a year ago and I inherited all of his books. A history of philosophy, for instance. He was a professor of classics, so those are his. And I'm not 100% sure any of us are going to pick up Hobbes to Hume, volume 5 of that book, but I really love having them there, right? Because I think that books also kind of work in that way, that they're like a piece of your history, a piece of your family, like you can remember where you were when you read something or what something meant to you or to someone else. This ottoman I got from an amazing shop actually right here called Hammertown, and they use vintage Turkish rugs to cover these ottomans. This used to live in my study, and I recently moved it here. We had a much smaller little table, but it's really nice because now I have room for the chessboard and the chess pieces, so my kids will come and play chess here. So in our house in Brooklyn, it was actually probably from about the same time period as this house, which is kind of interesting. It was a small red brick house in Clinton Hill. We were renters, so there was a limit to sort of what we could do with the space, but the main living area was smaller than this room that we're in, and it had the kitchen, the dining room, living room area all together. And the four of us, our family of four, were in this room all the time. It felt like we were just in this one room all the time. So it had to be very multi-use, and it also often felt like my kids were younger then, so it felt, there were markers and magnetiles and blocks everywhere and children's books, and it was very colorful and I think kind of slightly more chaotic, because one of the nice things, having a bigger space can be a bit forgiving because kind of absorbs your stuff of life a little more. I was a little worried when we moved, especially because we had lived through lockdown in this space, and I thought, oh no, we'll all be so spread out, but actually we're all sort of hanging out in little cozy nooks all the time. It doesn't really matter. But I would say that I've been able to be a bit more intentional about the design of this and sort of take my time. It's been kind of a more leisurely moment in my life, I think, than when I was making the Brooklyn home. And I think also that having Stories, our bookshop, and designing that space really taught me a lot about thinking about how you want people to feel in a space and how you want people to use the space. And so I think that I loved that process of building Stories. It was really one of my favorite parts of the whole experience. And I think I've been able to use that experience in this house. And now I'd love to take you to the dining room. Welcome to the dining room. We have dinner in here pretty much every night. So I really wanted this space to feel kind of serene and quiet. It's not pink. It's the only room in the house that is not a color. I mean, it's white. That was intentional. And we like to light the candles at night. That was something we sort of started during lockdown, where we would light the candles and say, we're having a dinner party. And it's one of those things where you do sort of feel like you're having a moment, right, when you light the candles. So I try to do that every night. This table was a wedding present from my mom and stepdad. And I mean, first of all, what a great wedding present. But it's been through a lot. It was in that sort of main room of our house in Brooklyn. So it has been used for many art projects, homework, lots of wear and tear, but I think it just sort of gets more beautiful, the more worn it gets. Some of these chairs, the head of the table and the foot of the table, these were my mom that have found a home here, and these are vintage Danish chairs that I found online. I love this sort of feeling of all the browns of the wood with the white. I think there's something so peaceful about it. This built-in was here when we moved in. Actually, the previous owners had a wild collection of birdhouses that was here, which was kind of fantastic. But I've used it for family photos, which is so nice to have. There's so many good services online where you can just send a digital photo and they'll frame it for you and send it, which is so nice because I think we live in this age where we take so many more family photos or photos in general, but they all live on our little rectangles that we carry around. And so to frame them and put them about is very satisfying. So family photos from trips. This is me and my husband Matt in our bookstore, and I like it next to this print by the artist, author and illustrator, and gave that to us as at the first anniversary of the bookshop. So kind of make a cute pair. And this is from my book, A Fort on the Moon. The illustrator, Larry Day, sort of the process when you're making a picture book is you make these kind of thumbnail sketches to get a sense of how the book will lay out. So this is one of his thumbnails of a scene from the book where the two brothers are lying in bed before they go to the moon. And it's very cute. They're wearing bike helmets because safety first for your moon expedition. That detail actually didn't make it into the book. In the final illustration, the helmets are hanging from the bed, but I just love that they're wearing their bike helmets in bed. So I have also some photos of my dad who passed away from my husband's grandparents. So it's also sort of our ancestors kind of looking down on us and protecting us, and while we have our nightly ritual of dinner. So this light fixture is by Workstead. They're interior designers and they make beautiful lighting. I love it so much. There's something about the color of the brass and the color of this rug. Actually, this is from Armadillo. They make a lot of sort of very simple but kind of luxurious feeling jute or natural fiber rugs, and it's very forgiving. Our dogs are just constantly scratching it or shedding on it or whatever, so it really is a great family rug. And there's something about all these kind of colors and textures I find very satisfying together. And I do feel like I like that it feels kind of different from the rest of the house, and it is kind of where we end the day as a family. It kind of sets the mood for like we're quieting down, we're connecting, we're resting. So this is a pass-through into the kitchen. I imagine that in an earlier version of the house, maybe the intention was that someone else was preparing a meal and could sort of send it through here. We call it the portal. And when we first moved in, my son Dominic was smaller and liked to sort of sit in here and read or draw. He's now my size, so it's a little trickier, but still occasionally he'll launch through into the kitchen just for fun, because how could you not when you have a portal? You gotta use it. We were, of course, really sad to leave Brooklyn. We had such a great community there, and my boys had never lived anywhere else. It was sad to say goodbye, but it was a really gentle landing here in Rhinebeck. We all sort of found our community pretty quickly, and I have really been surprised by how much I love living somewhere with such natural beauty. I mean, that seems like a pretty obvious thing to love, but I think when you're a city dweller, you sort of kind of forget that that's something humans need. And so, you know, I feel like we live in such a beautiful spot, and I take my dogs for walks every day and see the Catskills and the river, and I really feel like I kind of need that now in a way that I maybe didn't even know when I was living in the city. So the dining room leads right into my study, so let's head into the study. Welcome to the study. I'm very lucky as a writer to have a room of my own, and this is a space that I use for when I sort of need a little quiet, for writing, for working. I have all my fiction and memoirs here on these bookshelves. We were very lucky that these built-ins were here when we moved in. And sort of had the right amount of book space for all of our books. It's really great to have this little library, kind of think of it as a library in addition to a study, this sweet fireplace. We actually think this, and my husband's study, this part of the house was actually even a little bit older. And if you look at the floors, the floorboards go this way here, and then the other way in the dining room. So maybe this was like a little tiny cottage that was kind of added on to soon after it was built. But it has like lower ceilings. It has like a very cozy, quiet essence to it, and it has the darkest pink. We have in the entryway, we have kind of the palest, the living room gets a little darker, and then in here kind of a deeper pink. And I love to light a fire in the winter and sit in here and read or write or play around with words a bit, and have some photographs, old family photographs, my grandmother's when they were little, and a picture of me with my dad when I was little. I've been really interested in, because as a children's book writer, kind of keeping this idea of myself as a little kid as kind of the person I'm writing for in a certain way. Like, would she think this is silly? Would she think this is fun? So I have my paternal and maternal grandmothers as kids too, to sort of be like, okay, think about these guys. Kind of tucked away in the corner, I have this sign from our bookshop, Stories, which maybe one day I'll mount somewhere, but there is our logo, which is sweet to have its presence here still. The couch actually can fold out as a bed, so it can be this can become a guest room if we need it to, which is nice. This pillow is from Block Shop Textiles. They make really gorgeous pillows and rugs and table linens. Rocker I got at a vintage shop in Hudson, New York a long time ago, and it was painted orange, which is kind of wonderful. So this room has become kind of the red and orange room. Somehow in this small space, these kind of warm colors make it work in a way, which is adds to the kind of cozy vibe. Kind of a mood board over here with different things that are inspiring me. Some more pictures of myself when I was little, pictures of my kids when they were little, some of the things we created for stories, stickers. This Lori Richmond, an illustrator, made this beautiful illustration, watercolor of our shop. This is the facade of the shop, so I have that. And another Fort on the Moon by Larry Day illustration. And my mom made the cover in felt, of course. Got to make it in felt. And this is my older son Felix had to write a 6-word memoir So my brother, sometimes annoying, always fun. Which, you know, high praise from an older brother, actually. If you're always fun, you're definitely winning. One of the things we really loved about this house right away is situated sort of on a east-west axis. So the sun rises on that side of the house and sets behind me on the other side of the house. So you can sort of follow it throughout the day and sort of find your spot. Especially the light coming through these old glass windows, which sort of have this like almost marbleized quality in some of the panes. I really think that my style is kind of a mix of opposites in a way. Like I really love some modern or contemporary pieces, but I also really love vintage and antiques, and kind of have a lot of family heirlooms that I've kind of scattered throughout the house from both sides of my family. And I feel like I really like things that feel really colorful and bright, but I also like things that feel kind of serene and calm. And I like the kind of farmhouse element of it, but I kind of like things to feel a tiny bit fancy. So it's kind of these opposites that I try to put together in a room that I think defines the look of it. Now I will bring you to the kitchen. Welcome to the kitchen. The previous owners really went for it with the yellow and red formica. It's definitely a vibe. I feel like half of my friends are like, this is the most amazing, you can never change it. And half of my friends are like, how do you live amid such bright color? And it definitely feels a little different than the rest of the house, but I have really gotten to love this kitchen. I really love that I feel like the owners of the house weren't really following a design trend. I feel like they were just following their bliss. Actually, you kind of do see a lot of yellow kitchens now, so, you know, maybe they were ahead of their time. And we do a lot of cooking in here. My husband is really the better, more serious cook, but I also like to cook. And the previous owners of the house also left us this incredible table, which is, I don't even know how many feet long. But when we made an offer on the house, the sort of first thing they said in response is, will they keep the table? And we didn't really know what the right answer to that question was, but we said, yes, we will keep the table, and we have. So this is homework, breakfast, just the mess of life, and it can really absorb it all. You can have a puzzle going on one side and still have space to sit and eat. I think we're having 15 people for Thanksgiving this year, so we'll sit in here. So it's kind of incredible to have this amount of table. And these chairs, it's very sweet. They were from the storytelling lab in our bookshop and stories, so we've brought them in here. So nice to remember. That have a lot of kid art around. Felix made the giraffe and Dominic made this cat who maybe also is a unicorn. We have books, because we have books in pretty much every room in the house, cookbooks and just some kind of books about food and just stuff for the kids to make stuff. And yeah, so it really is such a great space for family life, just that you can sort of create a mess and then still sit at your table. This hutch we got at a vintage shop in Brooklyn, and it's been with us through many different homes. You know, I like that it sort of is maybe from around the time period of this house, and kind of goes with the floors in some way. So I feel like it was kind of meant to end up here, and it's just a very useful storage area too. Now let's go upstairs and I'll show you the primary bedroom. Before we head to the bedroom, I'll show you this little hangout nook. I love this space because it's sort of not a space. It could end up being just kind of landing, but we've been able to sort of create an extra room here, and we actually hang out here a lot sort of at the end of the evening. We listen to audiobooks here. We have a lot of fidgets so that you can fidget while you listen to your audiobook, we watch a movie. There's something about this kind of found space, which is kind of fun. We have these framed calendars from this was the month Dominic was born, July 2013, and February 2010 when Felix was born. It's this family that makes these beautiful calendars called the Dolphin Studio, and it's kind of a fun gift to give a framed, I think it's a fun birth gift. Actually, I gave it once to a friend too, of a framed calendar from the month someone was born. So we have those. We have the bean bags, which I kind of think of as minions, where usually the two dogs are sitting here and we're kind of competing for couch real estate. Yeah, so it's kind of a found space that is nice to have. And now let me show you the bedroom. Welcome to my bedroom. This room is not pink. It's this kind of blue-green that kind of changes color throughout the day, which is kind of fun. And as in the rest of the house, I have a lot of family stuff, newer pieces, vintage pieces that I found. This dresser in particular, this is where I have a lot of my clothes. It's part of a set, and there's a sort of shorter dresser in my son Dominic's room, and this was my great-grandparents. So I imagine that they bought it in the early 1900s. It's like a big, heavy piece. Sometimes I fantasize about painting it white, and maybe I will one day. I don't know if my great-grandmother would approve. This is one of the sort of older family pieces that I have. One really fun thing about this space is that these shades I had actually bought for our Brooklyn house, for the downstairs of our Brooklyn house, and I mismeasured. It was one of those services where you provide the measurements and they send you the shades, and I wasn't great at that task. So they were like a little bit too small and we never mounted them, but for some reason I kept them. And then uncannily, when we moved in, they fit perfectly in this room, which sort of made it all seem quite magical and meant to be. This rocking chair over here is actually something I picked out as a kid. I think I was about 8. My mom loved going to antique stores and flea markets, and I loved going with her, and it obviously made a big impression on me, as it's something I still love. But I saw this rocker, and I remember saying, it was in this like kind of deep red velvety upholstery, and it just seemed really glamorous to me. And I said to my mom, like, oh, can I have this chair, please? And she was like, you're 8, you don't need furniture. And I was like, why are you bringing me up to all these antique markets if I can never buy mine? And I promised to keep it forever. And see, I kept my word. We have the chair here. Acrylic nightstands are actually shelves, and I bought them originally for my kids' room because when you have picture books, they're so tall, it doesn't often fit well on normal bookshelves. So I had bought it for that, but now they have all my House and Garden and Architectural Digest and design magazines. And there's something nice, I think, having the clear acrylic when there's kind of this dark, heavy wood in the rest of the room. They're on wheels, they're super portable. So they've also had life in many rooms, but are working hard in here. This painting is by the artist Leanne Shapton, and she has written many really wonderful books that she also illustrates. She is currently the art director of the New York Review of Books, so it has many different careers, but this was a series she did of floral arrangements, and it was like one of the sort of first pieces of art that I kind of bought for myself. When my novel came out, it was like my little present to myself. So I like having this little floral arrangement above the bed. This is from, I guess it was 2007, I think. The Venice Biennale had the work of Felix Gonzalez y Torres. His work, at least for this exhibit, was like piles of candy, and you could take the candy with you, or these like big pieces of paper that said different things on them, and you could take the paper with you. So you could bring the art with you, which was really amazing. And I took Memorial Day weekend because that is when my husband Matt and I got married. So I took the big piece of paper and folded it into my suitcase, and it got kind of mangled, but we still have a little bit preserved here. So Amanda Jane Jones is a really cool graphic designer working now, and I really love and admire. She's done a lot of books, different projects, and she made this homebody print, which just is so sunny and makes me so happy. And I think this is a period in my life where I'm really embracing home, so it's a good reminder to have in your bedroom. Yeah, this is where I want to be. I think that home really means to me a feeling, how the people in the home are able to connect with one another, how you are able to connect with yourself. I really want my home to feel like a place where all the people and animals, we actually have a lot of animals too, we have 2 dogs and 2 cats, but everyone can sort of coexist and feel comfortable and also feel fully themselves. I feel like I think a lot about this home as being like my kids' childhood home, and I feel like there's kind of a built-in nostalgia to that idea. So I use that as kind of a guide for like, how do I want them to sort of obviously I can't control how they're going to feel, but how, ideally in a perfect world, like when someone says like, oh, what was your childhood home like? I just really want them to feel that it was this place of warmth and connection.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.